Welcome. It's another day with another brother. And like it is, we come out to you and we are always talking to inspiring people and having conversations that build me. Like I always say, I invite people for me first and then for you, obviously. And today I've got another brother of mine who is called Darren August. Darren August, welcome. How's it going?
TJ, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. What an amazing opportunity just to spend some time with you on this platform. I'm super excited to be here.
Amazing stuff, brother. Thanks for availing yourself. Darren, I think I just want to jump into it, man, and talk to you from what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. And for the next couple of minutes, that's what we're gonna spend some time on. But who is Darren? Well, what's your background and what do you do?
Yeah, I am so multifaceted. It's actually hard to answer that question when people ask. Then I think, which hat should I wear? But really, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I am a family man. My family comes first. But I think I love to describe myself as a dreamer. I'm somebody who really understands my purpose, and my purpose is simply to keep dreaming and inspire others to dream. And so everything that I do in life, everything that I do in business is 100% aligned to that purpose statement. And so some of the work that I do involves, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm the founder and currently the director of Inspired Publishing, which is a publishing company where I help authors write and publish their books. I'm a full-time speaker and coach. So there's a lot that I do, but really everything that I do is aligned to my purpose.
I think I want to dive into this whole concept of you being a man. So first of all, you're a man, and then you're a husband, and then you're a father, which brings in quite a lot of dynamics. Not so long ago, I was having a conversation with another brother, and we were talking about the dynamics of being a man. And not to say that, it's not complicated being a woman. You're born with whatever that you are. But in your journey so far, you have said you put your family first.
Yeah.
And I don't think that has come very easy. How did you become to that realization that you need to put your family first? Because for me, if we were to talk about putting your family first, I think the definition of family needs to come in first before we even talk about putting your family first. What is family? You know what I mean? So let's dive into that, man.
Sure thing. So I think for me, it almost starts a little bit differently because for me, it's actually God first and then family. And so I've realized that if I am going to be a leader to my wife and my family, I need to be led as well. And so for me, I have to be constantly finding myself in a position where I'm open to being led. And in my situation, that is really being led by God, being led by the Holy Spirit, so that I'm able to bring my best to my family all the time. It is obviously not an easy thing, especially in the times that we're living in, to be a man. There is so much demands on men to provide, to be there emotionally, to provide financially. And so we're living in a time where there's so much and you're being pulled in so many different directions all the time as a man. But I think I'm so grateful for having made the right choices in choosing my life partner. And so my wife is my best friend. She's my teammate. She's my business partner. And I think what's really great is she helps me just maintain balance, in my personal life, as well as in my family life, as well as in my career, because she's got the right to call me out when she can see me heading in the wrong direction. And so I think that's one thing that as men, we need to be able to do, is give our wives and give our loved ones permission to hold us to a higher standard.
So Darren, I'm going to ask you this question. And statistically in our community at the moment, in Africa where we're residing, there's just so many women that are coming into power. And this is a new era, right? But I don't want to sound sexist here, because I've always thought that women have always been in power. They've just not been given the positions. Because for me, growing up, it was just women all over me that were in giving direction and things that needed to be done, but yet they took a back seat in terms of wearing the title. Of late, if we go into business, we're seeing more CEOs being appointed as females. We are seeing salaries and so on increasing for women. We are seeing more business women coming into the business circles. We are seeing more women being elevated or elevating themselves as well. And thus they are becoming more and more powerful than they used to have. Not to say that they were not powerful, they were without even those titles, right? And the money. So now we're bringing in this dynamic now into the picture. And then there's a Darren on the other side who is getting married to such kind of a woman. And I speak to some other younger guys who are coming up and still dating and so on. They're struggling in finding fit to actually find someone to get married to because of such kind of things, that women are just so powerful now. So they're getting intimidated. So the masculinity, the muscular part of the men now is kind of like being dissolved. Have you been seeing this in your circle? And now that you are married, you have escaped that, but is it really gone because you are married, or is it something that will still be forever in our midst?
It's a tough one to answer, I think, because it's one of those things that's really different strokes for different folks, and so it's not just black and white. But I do feel like there's been such a shift worldwide to try and with this movement of getting women to the place where they are so powerful and so empowered, and they are now leading in the corporate space and leading in all of these different spheres. What's happening more and more now is that families are dissolving and disintegrating, and we're seeing it become harder to instill good values in children. We are, and it almost seems as though the systems that have been created and put in place now are designed in such a way to really, really take moms away from that very, very crucial role of being able to be with their children. And then again, it's been designed in such a way to put more pressure on dads to be able to have less time to be able to instill the kind of values that dads need to instill. And so I think we would be foolish to not see that right now there is just worldwide, there is an attack on families, there's an attack on the family unit, because family is really the basis of society. And so I think my encouragement to anybody who finds himself in a position right now where they are still navigating relationships and dating and eventually wanting to get into family is to really make wise choices, but also be vigilant so that you don't find yourself in a position where you make wrong choices that end up just perpetuating some of the brokenness that we see in society right now.
What is the, if you had to give a practical example of someone else, a young man who is listening to us today, I'm also going to give my practical example of, you find yourself now in a position where you could be, your heart and your eyes are seeing a very beautiful, hot, powerful person, but you're not in that position where they are. How do you find, what is the practical way of you to say you mustn't get, let's say, demotivated that they are not for you, or intimidated thereafter that you're less of a man because you can't provide for that? Because I'm of the view that love is beyond that. Though some other people have said to me, hey, TJ, love doesn't pay rent. So what's your practical way in terms of a young man who is seeing someone like that and they just in love and like, go for it? What is the practical way of doing it?
Okay. So I think it's so interesting. We saw a snippet this morning of a teaching by Miles Monroe, who's really one of the former experts in relationships, and he was saying that when a woman is making a decision about the kind of man that she will marry and spend the rest of her life with, the first thing she needs to ask is not, do you love me? It's actually, where are you going? Okay. And so, I think that was such a beautiful way of describing it. And so, yes, you may not be where you would like to be just yet, but if you can show a woman your plan, and show her where it is that you're going and how you intend to lead her to that place, I feel like half the battle is won. Because then it simply means finding somebody who resonates with your vision, resonates with where you are going, and is willing to submit and help you get to the place they believe that you are going to.
I really like that. So my one is pretty simple. I do think that the generation of now, we are more inclined or fall in love with the material stuff. I remember when I started dating, my dad said to me that don't look for a girl who is beautiful, because the looks are going to fade at some point. But look for a heart that can weather different seasons with you. Even though the heart may change, but the foundation of the heart, if it was good, then it won't change. And for me, if you're that guy who's out there looking out, and then there's someone else who's hot, who's got the money and everything else, look out for the heart, and let's make sure that the heart can sustain your relationship. But Darren, you're in business now, but you didn't start off in business, right? What is your first earnings? What do you do for your first job?
Very interesting. So I'm actually a law school dropout. I was studying. So after school, I went to university. I was set on becoming a lawyer. And until about second year of university, where you do your first court visit. And then I realized it's nothing like what it looked like on television, and it was just not for me. But so before I got into entrepreneurship and my own business, I had worked in a couple of corporate companies. I worked in a couple of banks. I worked in one of the medical aid companies in a call center, climbed up the corporate ladder to management level. I then did things like training. I was a lecturer at a college, Damlin. I lectured at Damlin for a while. So that's what I was, the typical corporate guy, working in the corporate space and trying to climb the corporate ladder, mostly like in service and learning and development type of spaces.
Okay, interesting. So we've got a similar passion here, which is people. I did most of my career in the banking system was around change management. Which is really taking people from one space of unknown to the next space to where they needs to be. I got introduced to you. I got two kids. So my son, he's 14 now, and I got introduced to you when he was around about 6. Someone brought us a book, your book.
Okay.
As a present. Right, you didn't know that, right? Is it?
Yeah, I'm like, where's this going? Okay.
Yeah, and they brought, I think it was his 7th birthday or so, and you were the first person of color that I've ever seen writing a book. Wow. And more so a kiddies book. So when I first saw the book, I was like, why would a grown-up be writing kiddies books?
Yeah,
like that is so ugly. And then I started reading the book, and it gripped me as an adult.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to my wife around this, and my wife says to me, but all the cartoons and so on that you watch on TV, do you think that they are written by kids or adults? And I'm like, oh, you're right, actually. So it is a profession, right?
Yeah.
And it made me to realize that sometimes when you're not seeing things in an everyday normal life, you actually don't think that it can be a profession. And there you are, you have taken profession, you have taken part of your business to as an author. How many books have you written so far now? I mean, I know of that book that we were blessed with. But yeah, where are you now with writing your books?
Sure. So the book you're referring to, that's a children's book series that I wrote called My Seed of Greatness. And that was actually my second offering into this space. The first one was a book that I authored about 2 years before that. In 2014, 2015 is when I launched it. And that book is called A Teacher Changed My Life, which is an inspirational book for teachers, just to remind them of how powerful the teaching profession is. And it's also more than that, it's a movement to encourage society to just elevate the teaching profession by really, really celebrating these unsung heroes that serve our children every day. So that was the first book I wrote. Then I wrote My Seed of Greatness, and I'm currently getting ready to launch and release my third book, which is called Self-Published to Six Figures. And that's really now a practical tool that I've developed, because now in the last 7 years, my work has been so much with authors and aspiring authors who have the desire to write and publish their own book. But I remember when I started my journey as an author, there was so little access to information and just the know-how on how to navigate this journey of being an author. And so that is why I've immersed myself into this space now, so that I'm able to empower people to share their messages with the world, to share their stories with the world, to create books and to create products that will serve their generation. And that's really what it's about.
So you mentioned of series of books and things like that. So I almost want to take you to a place when you didn't know how to write a book, right? And all you had was a vision of writing your first book. At that time, now you have the tools and you can help others. But when you look back at yourself, right at the beginning, what would you say were some of the challenges that you had then? And obviously with what you're now putting together is some processes and tools and so on, I'm of the view that you've taken that, improved it, so that if a guy like me who's coming in, who still just have a dream, I don't need to waste the time, and I don't have to have maybe the same pitfalls, and potentially I can get to market very quickly. But what were your challenges when you started?
Sure. So for me, some of the barriers to entry, I think, would be things like just access, firstly. And by access, I mean access to information on how especially the self-publishing world works. I mean, we're all familiar with the traditional publishing models where you write a book, submit it to a traditional publisher. If they like it, you get a publishing deal and you are on your way. But that doesn't happen for everybody. And so of late and over the last while, we've seen this new wave of self-publishing come to the fore that allows anybody a platform and an opportunity to share a message, to be an author, to produce books. But there was just so little information available on how to navigate that journey. I literally remember reaching out to about 2 or 3 authors who were the only people I could find on social media who had written books, and not one of them would respond to my messages and were prepared to even spend half an hour with me just showing me the ropes and how to do that. And so that was one of the things. I think the other thing was just mentorship and coaching. That was a real big stumbling block as well, because I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. Yeah, I had these ideas. I had this idea for a book, but I was like, am I even doing it right? Am I following the correct process? What's the next step? And so those are some of the stumbling blocks that I experienced. I also found that people who had a little bit of success in this space or in this industry were so closed and were not willing to share information. And so I really had the desire to just break all of that so that people can really, really be able to pursue their dream of writing a book, because I believe that it's so much more than just the desire to write a book. For most authors, writing and producing their book is a lifelong dream that they carry for the longest time, and so it doesn't only start by the idea, it actually starts at the desire phase. And so I encourage aspiring authors already who have the desire, express that desire right away so that you put it out there into the atmosphere, and so that you can now start getting the plan into motion. Sometimes just by talking about the fact that you have a desire to one day write a book already sets that dream in motion.
So who would you say should write a book?
Great question. So I feel like anybody who has a message to share, anybody who has a story to tell, and anybody who wants to impact others using a book. Also, anybody who would like to use a book as a tool to help establish their business or to start generating an income, So almost anybody could write a book and produce a book, but I don't know if everybody should.
So I was just attending a men's conference this past weekend, and we had a guest speaker from the States, and his name is Bishop Bronwyn. And he said something that challenged me a little bit. I mean, I'm an author. I've written 2 books now, 3 books. I'm struggling with my 4th one for the last 2 years in putting it together. So he said that imagine if your paternal grandfather and grandmother and maternal grandfather and grandmother, in their time of era, they had written books about their experience in life, about how they navigated that, and how God moved them, and how they navigated life and money and all of these other things that we know as life. So now, by the time you are born, Darren, you now have 4 books to read from.
Absolutely.
And these are not books that are, they're not foreign to your
They're
DNA.
relatable. Yeah.
Okay. You can easily go to an author and say, what did you mean when you were saying? Now, that's just the first 4 books. Now, imagine your mother and father, by the time you hit 20, they then handed you a book because they had potentially lived 20 or 30 years. So they have something to say, right? But here we're talking about self-publishing books, right? Books that can go out there into the commercial space and be sold and things like that. But here I was challenged as an author to say, hold on, what if you had to write a book which is a manuscript for your family? And this is something that gives direction of your family tree, of how things should be done. And instead of us leaving things in a gray area, and that's why I asked you the question: who should read a book? Because who should write a book? Because I do think that this is almost, people speak about legacies. You know, they want to buy buildings, they want to do business, but this is like 101 legacy, don't you think?
I was literally, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say a book is one of the best ways to leave a legacy. So obviously our company is called Inspired. And one of the things that we touch on very often when we are working with authors is a book is an opportunity for you to be able to leave inspiration in the earth. That is our desire, my wife and myself, is that by the time that we pass on and we leave this earth, we would have left a seed of inspiration in the earth that can spring up and serve generations to come. It is a way for you to immortalize your voice, because books never die. You know, people feel so bad when they have to throw a book away. They would rather see if there's a way to salvage it and donate it to a library or donate it to an orphanage, because people just don't want to throw books away. And so books never die. And it really, really means that your words could live on and outlive you for generations and generations to come. And so it absolutely is something that I wish more people would pursue. So I think the pastor who spoke at your conference was spot on. It is something that should be pursued a lot more. Yeah.
So you could have chosen anything else. I mean, you could have decided to go back into corporate. You could do that today, but you have resorted to continuously forging processes, helping other people into planting their seeds in books. And this is almost becoming your mission, so that you can help authors and publish more books. Now, why that line of business other than anything else? Is there a big monetary value that I don't see here, maybe? Maybe I need to change the business.
It's a combination of a couple of different things. So for me, it had always been a dream to write a book one day. You know, so growing up, I always looked at people, especially like in the personal development spaces. So like coaches and speakers, and very often those people would have a book. And so a lot of times I was like, that's something I would want to do one day. At the time, here's the thing, at the time that I wrote my book, I was married for just over a year. We had got married, had a beautiful first couple of months, and then hit a brick wall because we were dead broke. And so I had said to my wife at the beginning of 2014, I said to her, if things don't change in my business, because I had already been an entrepreneur, but if things don't change in my business, I'll go back into corporate and find a job. And April that year, I got my book idea. I went back to her and I said, I've got an idea. Can I have 6 months to work on this? And I thank God every day that she said yes, because it literally changed our lives. And so, but when I got my book idea, I didn't just get an idea. I got complete strategy of how I would be able to turn this book into a business. And so for me, a big part of the reason why I wrote my first book was because it was going to be a vehicle that I could use to get me to the ultimate goal, which was really just platforms. I always wanted platforms. I always wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be able to be the kind of person who could impact other people's lives by living out my purpose and by being able to really, really speak to the dream on the inside of other people. And I felt like the best way to get to that was by creating a book that would give me credibility and put me on platforms where I would be credible and have authority and be able to really, really live out my passion and be able to use my skill to generate income. And so for me, it really is an absolute blessing that I get to merge two worlds, which is passion and profit, because my book has been engineered and structured in such a way that it literally is still our main business to date. I haven't had to write another book for the last 9 years, because the first book I wrote, I got it right the first time. I had strategy. And so I thank God all the time that it happened that way. But again, it was like a combination of all of those things. So I sort of stumbled on it by default, but also, again, it's because I had expressed that desire even way back. And so that's when I believe the plan was already in motion.
Okay. All right. I like that. Darren, before you go, brother, you're an author, you've been writing books. What is the maybe one book that has impacted you? And what's the name of that book? Could be a business book or any other book.
Okay, so there's a couple. The first one that springs to mind is it's Higher is Waiting by Tyler Perry.
Right.
So I know it's Tyler Perry's book. It's called Higher is Waiting, simply because he's such a great storyteller, and there's just so many like life lessons you can learn from stories. I think so much depth as well, and I think I resonate a lot with just the kind of lessons that he teaches in that. So that's one of my absolute favorites. That's called Higher is Waiting, really inspirational book. Then in terms of business, this is a book that impacted me quite a bit. I've read it a number of times. I keep reading it. It's called Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. And so it's really a productivity system where it helps you how to achieve more by doing less. And so it really challenged me. After reading this book, I had to learn how to say no, thank you, no more, no ways. And so, but also just how to really, really be able to delegate and put systems and processes in place so that I can be more productive and effective. Great book that's impacted me quite a bit.
Okay, cool. If we had to look at 10 years ago, whilst you were still the lecturer, and because that's where you were about 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And we could say, Darren, you are going to touch 1,000 people with books. You are going to be doing everything else that you're doing today. Would you have said it's possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think people often ask me that question, like, are you surprised by what you've achieved? Are you surprised by some of the accolades? And my answer is always no, I'm not surprised, because I always knew that I had it in me. But I knew that because I know the God that is in me and I know what's possible. And so for me, even my greatest achievements are still only the tip of the iceberg, because the best is still to come, And so I absolutely always believed it was possible. I always believed that if I can think it, if I can dream it, and if I can imagine it, I can absolutely achieve it with hard work. What I would say to my younger self, what I would say to myself 10 years ago is probably something like, start sooner. I would drill it into my head. I heard this concept recently that says success loves speed, and I feel like if we just try sooner, do sooner, fail sooner, pick ourselves up sooner, we'll get to the end goal so much quicker. And so I think a lot of times we are afraid to step out because we are held back by fear. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of the success. We're afraid of what could be and what could happen. And so as a result, we just don't start. But I've really learned that the quicker you start, the quicker you're able to learn the lessons that need to be learned so that you can get to the results that await you.
Lovely. I like that. Darren, before you go, man, thanks a lot for your time. But what does success look like to you?
So to me, success is at the end of the day, when I walk out of the office at home, or when I walk into home, or if I return from a trip or a speaking engagement, having my wife say, "Lover, I'm so proud of you." I feel like for me, there is nothing more fulfilling. You know, we went through a really tough season recently, and she said to me, "I want you to know that the season we're in is not a reflection of you and who you are. It's just a season." Right. And so for me to be able to have somebody by my side every single day that believes in me that much, that loves me unconditionally, that sees the potential in me, that wants the best for me, that is my biggest cheerleader, that sees me as a hero, for me, there is nothing better than that. There's absolutely nothing better than that. Obviously, once my kids are talking and they can say it as well, that's going to be, it's going to be great as well. But for now, it's my wife. And for me, that is the absolute epitome of success.
I read a book that's called The Unfair Advantage, and it speaks about different forms of unfair advantages that people have in life. And the more you speak, for me, your unfair advantage over everything else that you do is your partner. So really, really excited and grateful for you that you found a partner that can speak life into you or into each other, and that you can do life together. Because I think what I see is one makes one, but two makes three. And it's just that drive that you can take from putting a partnership together. And if especially it's a partnership that's now understanding each other, the world, it's just unstoppable what you can do. So well done in the conviction, and well done in identifying and nurturing that as well. It takes time as well to nurture that and figure that out, that we together are actually one team and we're working into greatness. So thanks a lot, Darren, for your time. I really appreciated spending time with you. Good luck with your endeavors. For people that are wanting to start off their journey of entrepreneurship, in the description, you can see Darren's credentials and details on how you can do it. Maybe you're trying to figure out, how do I figure out this business and a book? Or maybe you're trying to figure out, how do you actually start a book and you've never thought about it, and today you're like, oh, I can. So Darren is the guy that can help you. The process is pretty simple. You can do it. I've done it 3 times. A guy that, whose English is like 5th language, but I've written a couple of books. So you too can do this, and you can improve either your business, start a business. The money is not in the book, it is around the book. It is I, TJ. We'll see you on the next video.